Centerpiece of the Russian military for decades. Tanks proudly driven through Red Square, with the leader watching. And now, in its natural environment, sweeping through the landscape in exercise. Pictures designed to show the world how it would be impossible to stop a Russian advance. So how did it come to this? Apparently hundreds of Russian tanks destroyed. Are the weapon systems being sent by the UK and others so good that they render the tank useless, an obsolete relic of the past? Or is it something else?
Every time the tank has been used in combat since World War II, people have posed this question, is the tank now obsolete? And the last significant time that happened was in the Israeli-Arab War of 1973, when a lot of tanks on both sides were taken out with second-generation anti-tank missiles. And now, of course, we're seeing the same thing. And of course, what we have to remember that after the Arab-Israeli War of 73, tanks were used very successfully by Britain and America during the First Gulf War, and there were no issues there because we used them properly.
That appears to be the crux of the issue. Russia has the kit, but it appears little idea of how to use it.
Part of the problem is that instead of attacking across a single line of advance, they use multiple axes. So, 20 different lines of approach. And that is impossible to support logistically. If you have just one main thrust, a la Blitzkrieg, then of course that's very easy to support. The correct way to use the tank is to have a focused line of march, focused objective, one objective at a time, and to make sure that that's fully resourced with the right number of troops, logistical backup and so on. But also you have to use artillery and air support.
From their look to examples of past effectiveness, the tank has become almost talismanic, the embodiment of an army's strength. But in reality, tanks are simply another tool to be deployed in certain circumstances and precise ways.
So you need to support infantry with indirect fire, artillery, but also the direct firepower that tanks offer. And that's why they're so important still. And that's why infantry need them. And if you say tanks are obsolete, you're saying that all armoured vehicles are obsolete. And we know perfectly well that British soldiers were killed in Iraq when the Snatch Land Rover didn't provide enough protection. So, if we're not going to use tanks, how are we going to protect our troops?
Estimates vary wildly as to how many tanks the Russians have lost, but they may yet be a deciding factor. The Russians have regrouped in the south and are following a much narrower objective. Exactly what's needed for successful tank operations.
In the last 2 weeks, Kherson, Mariupol, these cities have been reduced to rubble through the use of artillery, and nothing can survive that kind of bombardment. And therefore, the Russians would have had much more freedom to maneuver their armored vehicles and will have done so. And that's exactly what they will do now, absolutely.
So far from being obsolete, the tank may already be playing an effective and potentially game-changing role in the south of Ukraine. Tim Cooper, Forces News. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe.